Okay. So now we'll have a presentation on pruning native plants by Leslie Buck. The video was made by Elise Morgan. And I want to say I'm sorry we're running a little behind. It's a live program and these things just happen. So we're going to get everybody through it with the time that they're allowed. And we have Leslie Buck is an aesthetic pruner. She is the author of the New York Times reviewed book, Cutting Back, My Apprentice in the Gardens of Kyoto. If you haven't read it, it was a really engaging memoir, and I totally enjoyed it, about the year that Leslie spent studying and working with one of the most highly acclaimed landscaping companies in Japan. You may have seen Leslie's home garden, as she's had her Berkeley garden on the tour 5 times. In this video, Leslie will demonstrate basic pruning techniques and cuts that look so natural you can't tell your native plants have been pruned. And I know Leslie does a beautiful job because she's pruned in my yard. Let's see, Leslie cannot be with us today. She's traveling and she was going to try to join us, but it looks like she cannot. So let's go right on now to her video.
Lovely. If you can stop your share for me, and
I will.
thank you. I appreciate it. And there we go.
Hi, I'm here with Bringing Back the Natives to teach you pruning, the basics of natural aesthetic pruning that I learned at Merit Horticulture School and also in Japan with the company Ueto Zoen, and which I wrote a book about if you ever want to hear about craftsmen in Japan and running the gardens cutting back, which is also on video. And you can always reach me at my website, Leslie Buck Author, where at the end of this video and also on that site, I will say there'll be a longer how to prune video, much more detail with much more info listed. So I'm going to start right off, and if you have cut branches and want to cut along with me, go for it. So I'm going to show you 3 pruning cuts: thinning, heading, and tipping. Those 3 cuts, if you understand them, you will be doing better pruning than 80% of the pruners out there. This goes very well with native plants, which I specialize in. I'm an aesthetic pruner professionally, and I only take on native garden pruning accounts now because I love working in them. So the thinning cut is the first one. Pay attention to this one. If you only have this one, your garden's going to improve. Thinning cut is at an intersection. Deal is, most people, when they go out to prune, they're like, oh, here, I'm going to show you the back side just so you can see what I'm talking about. Let's prune. So here's the structure, and this is too tall, let's say. It's hiding, there's something behind it. The sky, we want it lower for more light. We want to see another prettier, a different tree behind, so we see this one and another one, rather than just the one in front is blocking the whole garden. Or it's on a path, it's too long, we need it back. So somebody comes along, hey, prune that, it's getting in my way. So somebody comes and prunes it. Well, when you prune just anywhere, it creates massive reaction. So next year, instead of 2 branches, you have 6. When you prune at an intersection, which a thinning cut is, which is either at the intersection of the branch or at its point of origin, but we'll just say intersection. So I'm going to imagine that was really tall, I want it shorter. I'm going to cut at that intersection. I'm going to cut at that one, and see if I don't. I think even on that far away, you can see that. You can see that cut. Even the littlest. I say never leave a cut big enough that a mouse can hang its hat on. Too big, mouse hat hanger. So when I really go in and make that cut nice, and I get used to that, I just start doing it automatically. So now it's shorter, but you can't tell it's been pruned. Now the next cut is heading, and that is to a leaf rather than at an intersection. So say that it's still a little bit, this is a little bit off. I'd like it a little more, or, as I said before, when you cut not in an intersection, it promotes more sprouting. Well, sometimes we want more sprouting. There's an empty spot here. Maybe I want to get more thicker, more privacy. So I would do heading cuts. So I'm going to, even heading cuts, I don't just cut anywhere where you can see that. I cut to a leaf. See how you can't see that? So I'm going to lower this with some heading cuts in half. One to a leaf, to a leaf. And maybe one of my cuts, it'll sprout enough that this will get thicker next year. I'm gonna do a heading cut too. So see how it still looks fairly natural. Let's get another. So cut it in. Should I do heading? Should I do thinning? Maybe a combination of both. I usually do 80% thinning, 25% heading, and 5% tipping, which I'll get to. I hope that adds up to 100. I'm a pruner, not a mathematician. I'm going to get this down by, I want this to be in half, and I want it to be a little thicker next year. So I'm going to make a cut. This is here to here, so let's about to there. Whew! Let's make a thinning cut. And then the rest of them I can do heading. Why didn't I do heading? Because I want this to be in half. I want it to stay that way next year. So this is one, most of us want to have a tree that's too big. If it's too big, you want it smaller, try and do as many heading cuts as possible. Sorry, try and do as many thinning cuts as possible. And there's a thinning because this is the back. And then I'm going to head. And I'm not going to do a heading cut that is, I'm going to do one little trick. If I do a heading cut that is a little bit, it's not graceful. I'd rather do a heading cut, you can see it. I'd rather do a heading cut with the leaf in front of it, where it's sort of hidden. See how I'm hiding it? Hiding that cut. But if this were below, and I was trying to hide the cut, I might not do that one, because then you'd see the cut. I would do where the cut's below. Anyway, head, head, head. And then the last cut is thinning. Oh, sorry, tipping. So there's thinning, which is intersection, 2 T's. And then there's heading, which causes more sprouting, but it's just to kind of clean the line. If there isn't an intersection to cut to, you can do a heading, and you can also do heading to make it thicker. But at the very end, I was up in a tree pruning these branches earlier this morning, and right at the end, after I'd done a bunch of thinning, couple heading, I saw some branches in front of me that were, I could tell they were in the right spot, but in spring, I could tell they were going to sprout. And I don't have to prune. I want to put off pruning as much as possible. So I go and I find those little ones and I tip it. That's tipping. It's just the very ½ inch or less, or ¼ inch. It sometimes is even just the bud. And that in the spring is, rather than this just shooting up, it feels like there's something there and it'll shoot more out. I want my plants to have more choices inside rather than shooting up where I don't want them. So I just tip, do a little 5% where I can reach, I'm kind of moving around, so I get to some most or some. Sometimes when I'm just walking by it and I don't have time to prune and I see it's starting to get in the way, I just tip it. In the spring, it's nice and, soft, so you can do that. And tipping is very powerful. It's how they keep 100-foot redwoods and bonsai plants, such as the one here that my mentor, Dennis Makashima, my pruning mentor, did. This pine would normally be 30, 40 feet tall. I can't remember. I think it might be a red pine or a black pine. Looks like a red pine, all soft. And tipping and little pruning cuts keep something from, if you can make the plant feel like there's a ceiling, it will just stop. If you're cutting hard every year, it keeps sprouting. So it's like, I'm being eaten, react. But you know how if it hits a wall, it just kind of stops? So tipping is making it think it's hitting a wall. So any chance I get, I tip. I'm going to show you some of these cuts on other native plants rather than just the coffee berry and how they work for everything. So here's a mallow, and say that, they're very rambunctious and I just want to thin it. I can do, a thinning cut like that. Say that I want to cut it back in the winter, I can, but these have already gone dead. I need to cut it back. I'm not going to cut it back here now. Now, see how I'm going to cut it back to a leaf. Nobody will know, the better. And if I can find a little branch, if you can find a little branch to cut to, for some reason the hormones go and they just fizzle out. So there's even more chance it won't sprout back. So little is always good. Say that I have a Rogers Red and it's going way out and towards I have a whole fence near my car. I can't have it hitting my car. I can cut it. I can do a heading cut. I can even do a couple leaf cuts to show off the pretty grape. And sometimes I cut to the grapes themselves, so there's a lot of leaves and there's a few grapes showing, which makes it easier for wildlife. And I also have a buckwheat here that goes right out onto the sidewalk, and my neighbors tolerate it, but I have to cut it back in the winter. So instead of just cutting right there and having a stub that pokes people's eyes, I cut it way back to an intersection. So one last trick, I prune coarse and leave fine. Then each time that fine then becomes coarse and there'll be a new fine. That's how you get coarse to fine gradual transition. So there's the last trick for those of you who hung in there. I'm going to prune coarse, leave the fine. Let's get some of these off. And now we're ready for next year. And if it's just these have gone brown, I feel like wildlife has enjoyed them enough, or say I'm a little worried about fire danger, I will prune seeds off during those periods. I usually wait till after Halloween. So I just prune, see how I just prune to a little leaf or to bigger leaves. So I wanted to show you some examples of more heading cuts and thinning cuts, and one of them is this prickly mahonia, which I have donned my pruning gloves. So yeah, I make a couple thinning cuts, get it down. Remember how we talked about this thinning, and then taking down some of these prison bars, these ones that go straight up in the foreground. I don't want to cut those berries off. Cut. I'll finish that up later. Thinning. And I really take pains to look where is the intersection. It takes more time, but this will not react in the spring. And then this is pretty much off the path. Here, there's one more. But I want it to stay off the path. I generally like the outline of it. So I just prune to a leaf, and there's the heading. It's not intersection, but leaf, heading. I'm just making it think, oh, this one needs to be thinning. And if I just do that last inch, that is tipping, and I can even prune a few leaves to make the berry show off more. Like sometimes I just prune it right to the berry because it's just so pretty. Like, oh, I'm going to remove this just so you can see that berry. See how, because that is the main view. I'm going to prune to the berries. I am doing somewhat thinning cuts, sometimes to a leaf. But see, I think you can start, here's a heading, thinning, thinning. I think you can start seeing these berries better. Here, just a little bit to a leaf, to a heading, so you can see that berry. And this one's, who's the top? I kind of like that one. So that's the tallest. Everything else comes down. Comes down. I try not to do a heading cut bigger than a chopstick, except on a fruit tree. And then I just do a couple little touches over here, because that's my top. Oh, I see two sticking up. And this one's done. One year I really pruned this, and it didn't sprout back for 3 years. That's where I think I call it the obedient. Some plants like a coffee berry are more sprouty, a little more teenagery, and such are maples. But this one is obedient. And really, it's so gentle. It's a gentle giant. It's like, okay. So I want to show you one last plant, which is the Doug fir, which I created this garden to feel like specifically the place in nature I chose that I love is campground on the edge of the forest that has a meadow. It has the sound of a stream. It has little birds around, just like the hummingbird that just flew by. But it took me a while to decide to add this Douglas fir, because they do get so big, but I decided I'd add one, and I'm going to keep it with my pruning skills just 10 feet tall. And all I really want is these lower branches, because people come by, and every single person comes by and they stroke it and they go, oh. And I realized if you're going to build a garden that evokes the feeling of a forest in California, it's good to have a conifer, because it just feels instantly like that little forest where I have camped many times. And it's easy to keep this small. I just keep doing those thinning cuts. And I have to prune plants above it to get light down there so it stays alive, very crucial. You can see the prickly mahonia in the background that's now beautifully pruned, but still absolutely natural, with the berries showing off more. So pruning shows more sometimes. And if you want to see more cuts in this garden, there's a much longer video on YouTube that shows this Bringing Back the Native Garden Tour, Pruning with Native, Pruning Special. And I hope you go out into nature, relax some, observe, what do you see, what are the plants pruning, form telling you, and go home and try some of these techniques at home. And then afterwards, maybe have a cup of tea.
Hi, Leslie. Can you hear me? I can't hear you. Are you muted?
There we go.
There you
Hi.
go. I'm glad you could join us.
Yeah.
Where are you? You're away right now.
I am in Ventura.
Okay, good. Well, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah.
So that was a great video. I really enjoyed it.
That was fun. Elise Morgan did everything. It was almost a whole day, 2 days of filming to make that. So
that video was done by Elise Morgan. I think it was elisemorgan.com. She was a volunteer who made it, and I'm very grateful to her for doing so for the second year in a row. So let's see, we had some questions. Someone asked what tool you were using.
yeah, I answered that. The tool was from suzukitool.com. It's a handmade pruning shears. A lot of Japanese pruning shears sold are from factories. And this one is made by a craftsman metalsmith family. She specializes in finding small families that make tools. And so when you get something that's hand forged, it stays sharp incredibly long. It's really, really strong. That's the benefit. It's more expensive. I have also, on occasion, I've gotten like at the dollar store, I found pruning shears. As long as the shears bypass, like they don't just hit each other, but they actually pass. That's what you want. Velcros are great because you can get the size for your hand. But so any are great. I just think sometimes for homeowners, it's really nice to have something that stays sharp forever and is just, it can cut paper. It's just so fun to use, but it's up to everybody on that one.
Okay. Somebody asked, so some people are on the chat, but most people are not. If you would explain the pruning course to fine again.
Yeah, that was great. And on the chat, I listed the link for Suzuki Tool if you want. Here's a great behind me, just by chance. Course to fine is the way all trees are in nature. And see how this tree, it is some kind of like a desert willow or something. See how it's coarse trunk to medium branch to fine. And then when you look in nature, trees are always fine on the outside. Here's one way in the, oh, can't see it. When you look behind Kathy, every tree is fine. And we know that in our subconscious. So when we see trees that we call hacked, it means there's a coarse branch on the outside. So when you're pruning, you really want that end branch to be fine. That is, making those most of the cuts to intersections is really important. That will help it look natural, like you wouldn't believe. And then making sure the ends are fine is, will help it have that look of it being natural. And I hope that I hope that'll answer the person's question.
Okay, good. I think
And
so.
I'll stay on. You can ask as many questions as you want, guys.
All right, I have one more question for you. So is there a season for pruning, like ceanothus or manzanitas? Is there a time of year when one should or should not prune those plants?
You know, a lot of pruning books are talking about do it in the winter. A lot of those are from the East Coast. And so look at where a book is from if you get it. And here in California, we can almost prune year round. I like to prune after something has flowered. That's one time because then you don't lose flowers. Or I actually prune it when it's in flowers because I like making bouquets for local businesses to promote native plants. That's something I like doing on the side. And another time is when it gets too big. So it's going to be late spring, late summer, you know, when it does that flush. Um, sometimes in the fall, it's looking, you know, like perennials. Sometimes I'll wait because I like the look of fall so much. But if I were in a fire area that I'm feeling nervous, I would just shake it and try and get those seeds off. A lot of times the seeds pop. So when people say messy garden, it doesn't have to stay messy all year round. The seeds pop fairly quickly. And then you can cut those deadhead that stuff off and it can make your garden look really neat. Like occasionally my French cups near my most private sitting area have gone brown. I can see they've popped. I will spend half an hour just meticulously cutting to the ground. Like when I cut ferns, I cut all the way to the base. I don't leave stubs because even the little stub, you can tell it's not natural. It starts and they build up over time. And if you just get rid of them all and have that natural beauty of just the green, it's just so incredibly relaxing. It's worth it because then the French cup looks great all winter. The Toyon, I really try and prune in the winter, like right now, after the berries go, after the waxwings have wiped it out, and before the spring, before the branches send out the next flowers. Because then if you prune it before that, then every branch that shoots out is going to have flowers on it. Otherwise, you might have to wait or remove a few berries to get it smaller later.
Okay, well, let me say, somebody said, I will now use your advice to prune my pink currant. Thank you from Margot. I want to say thank you from me for joining us while you're even away. Leslie is an aesthetic pruner. You can reach her at lesliebuckauthor.com. She's also a very engaging writer. If you want to read a good book, Cutting Back, My Apprenticeship in the Gardens of Kyoto was a lot of fun to read. So Leslie, thank you so much. Oh, I want to say Leslie also only prunes in native plant gardens now.
Yeah, and I just want to say I have been slowing down. I have a lot of general clients, but I am taking on native garden clients. When I work on a native garden, I am happy that day. So if you have a native garden, you want something pruned, call me, please. And if you need some help, how are we going to design this over time? How is this? Where's this going? It looks messy. I can just come for an hour and give you advice. I can train you guys in pruning if for an hour. So give me a call. I'm pretty open.
All right, rattle off your phone number and then I'm going to push on. Rattle off your phone number.
Oh, it's it's my contact me on my website.
Okay.
Leslie Buck Author. The contact form goes directly to my email, and that allows me a little bit of privacy.
All right, good. Leslie, thank you so much. That was a terrific demonstration. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Kathy, for doing this. It's
You're
amazing.
welcome. Hope to have your garden back on the tour next year.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be there.
Thank you. Bye-bye.